Thank you for that warm introduction, Marilyn. In 2018, Manitoba launched its Economic Growth Action Plan, and RMED was conceptualized as one of the 4 geographic agencies that would be responsible for rural Manitoba. So where is rural? It is all of the cities, towns, municipalities, and communities outside of the city of Winnipeg, the Winnipeg metropolitan region, and northern Manitoba. These regions have other economic development agencies supporting their needs. Rural Manitoba represents a large portion of the province and until now did not have an agency to represent it in strategic discussions, to be a conduit for information flow, to coordinate programs, and to facilitate regional strategies that help everyone grow together. RMED's mandate is broad. However, it can be put simply: collaborate with everyone, support the creation of investment-ready local and regional plans, facilitate communication that assists businesses in establishing synergies and finding government programs and services, provide a single point of ongoing communications to disseminate economic development information, identify and address programming gaps, barriers, and challenges, become the source for rural data to support decision-making, and to tell the world that rural Manitoba is open for business. So how are we going to make that happen? First, data acquisition, analysis, and distribution is the foundation to understanding the environment and then using that understanding to plan and implement any strategy. This is a foundation upon which we will need to build to not only meet the needs of our mandate, becoming the source of rural Manitoba data, but also to ensure sufficient information to achieve all aspects of our mandate. Second, advocacy. Becoming the united voice for rural Manitoba economic development needs. Listening to you, your experiences, your clients' experiences, and identifying trends, whether they are opportunities, successes, or barriers, will allow us to present you not only as part of Team Manitoba, but also beyond Manitoba's borders. Third, communication and marketing are key, and rural Manitoba has incredible stories to tell. We are not just open for business, we are thriving here. One of the best parts of my new role is talking to the innovators and entrepreneurs that are making their communities thrive. It is a great story that needs to be more clearly understood within the province, across the country, and around the world. This takes time, and success will rely in part on having the data and information to back up the story. Regional alignment. Not all businesses will do equally well in all parts of the province. And in fact, not all communities have the right mix of infrastructure, labor, etc., to support all kinds of business. A transparent, open, and data-driven approach to regional planning will create a more cohesive approach to investment attraction that benefits all corners of rural Manitoba. RMED has a big mandate and big goals. We cannot tackle everything all at once. But if we dream big and have a vision that extends several years, then we can make each step and milestone strategic as we move forward. In the coming weeks and months, along with the mechanics of opening an office and hiring staff, RMED is focused on 3 priorities. Establishing and implementing a rural data strategy, which includes gathering the information necessary to understand the infrastructure assets that exist. The strategy will identify many projects that will need to be completed as we move forward. And I anticipate some of these projects will include developing a standard approach to create and maintain workforce data on a regional basis, identifying existing infrastructure and creating regional profiles that identify the type of industries that regions can support and plans to address any gaps, creating tools that industry and site selectors can use to assist in finding communities that are a good fit, building a team and a data set that enables us to support communities and projects with customized reporting and analysis. Representing rural Manitoba is a responsibility we take seriously. Rural Manitoba is diverse, and while many needs are similar or the same, we do not want to lose sight of the unique characteristics that make Manitoba what it is. So what does representation mean in practical terms? listening, visiting, and getting to know the people in the projects, participating in roundtables, on committees, and at events, actively looking for opportunities within communities, monitoring for trends that emerge across the province that may not otherwise be apparent, identifying opportunities to economic development and seeking solutions, and using data to help develop communication and marketing materials that tell rural Manitoba's story around the globe. Regional plans, strategies, and development will rely on the collection of data and the understanding and contextualizing of it. While RMED works on its data strategy to ensure we have the information necessary for regions, we will initiate conversations with local governments, EDOs, and business to begin conversations. Regional strategies need to be formed from within and reflect a shared vision as to what communities within a region want to become. Through these conversations, RMED will learn more about those visions and plans, and we will work with you to develop a methodology that is supported by stakeholders. The road before us is exciting and the future is bright. We hope that by fall, our office is open, staff are in place, and public health orders allow for us to gather to further conversations in person. However, please reach out to tell me about your projects, to ask questions, and to seek guidance. While it will remain an office of one for several months, I'm committed to learning as much as I can now and ensuring that time-sensitive projects get the support that they need. Following the panel discussion, we will have a Q&A. Please type your questions and comments in the Q&A chat. For those that we're not able to respond to during the event, we will get back to you via email.
Thank you for joining me today for what I hope is the first of many discussions about economic development opportunities, challenges, and solutions. RMED's mandate is broad. What do you think our first priorities should be after we get the office up and running?
I think the first piece of attention should be prioritized of sourcing and aggregating data to establish a baseline of historical and current conditions to be able to chart your path forward, to be able to measure your success. Mm-hmm. This should be a short-term effort to establish some baseline in a few targeted priorities and the categories that you feel should be supported, recognizing that without any sort of a baseline of data, tracking your ongoing success will be, and being able to demonstrate the change is going to be difficult. I say that because of really the scope of what you have to do is so broad that being able to prioritize and itemize a few categories as priority and then some data collection within those areas. Collectively, all of the panelists have spoken of things in the logistics world. Your water, your internet, simple logistics of being able to move things, whether by rail or by road, as being priorities, and so to be able to quantify the data that is in some of those areas in rural Manitoba.
I do agree 100% with Todd. We need the data. RMED needs the data. So that they can plan their way forward, what their next steps are. But without that baseline, it doesn't really matter. It comes down to finding out, what has worked, what doesn't work, what's available in the areas. And without some of that, we could bring anybody we wanted into any part of rural Manitoba, but it's not going to work. So to be able to focus sort of what the next step is, I think the key thing for RMED is going to be to get some of that data collected, whether it be, what municipalities have available. Is there things that communities were missing that couldn't be provided? That's the information that you kind of need to have that baseline to figure out what's the next step, where do we go from here, who do we engage next? So yeah, without that data, I think you'll struggle. So I think data is your number one priority.
My thoughts were, for one of the first things you might to do would be to take inventory of all the services that are currently available in rural Manitoba, that would be fairly extensive, and different services are needed for different businesses. But I think you're going to have that inventory, so when somebody shows up in your doorstep, you're going to be able to channel them in certain directions, saying, okay, here's where you can go for this, here's where you can go for that. And then another part of that would be a listing of all of those requirements that are needed for entry into business. So this could be on a fairly elementary basis, but there's some things that all of us need to have in our back pocket in order to get a business started. And so I think you becoming very familiar with all of those requirements for entry will be essential. Another thing that I think would be helpful is to do a little bit of troubleshooting. So what obstacles can we as business owners run into? And if you have that awareness within your office, or that again, that inventory of those issues that can help or that can hinder people, you can give new business owners a little bit of a heads up and saying, okay, here's some things that you might run into in this particular sector.
What is the greatest opportunity you see in rural Manitoba, and what's RMED's role in making it happen?
Simply, our greatest source of opportunity that we in Manitoba have is our centralized location in North America. We have affordable land. We have relatively low cost of electricity and energy, and I think that is one of our, quite simply, our greatest asset. And I think RMED should be telling this story to all levels of government, and very, very specifically to tech companies, working with the governments to remove the red tape that is limiting tech companies from developing in our borders. We are absolutely the most ideal from infrastructure, from national security, land development, environment, for tech companies to be locating their server farms here. I think those would be the first items that should be working on there. And I also think that there could be additional collaboration with the likes of Red River College to ensure that the necessary job training is available to attract these type of companies, by removing the argument, well, you don't have a qualified labor force. We absolutely should be working with the likes of Red River Colleges to make certain that we've got the trained labor forces that would be complementary to attracting these types of businesses and telling that story.
We've got lots of opportunity for organic growth, and I don't mean organic in the scientific means. I mean it's coming from grassroots. I have just seen, since my time here at the Green Spot and my kind of interest in more of the food commodity line, is that there's a lot of people with a lot of energy out there that have pushed this along. It's meat producers, cheese producers, preserves, all of those things that we require. I was in the grocery store the other day, and it really irritates me to see that I have to buy a jar of pickles that is produced in India. And I think, really, like, is that where we have to get our pickles from? I looked around and I found one from the Prairie Provinces. I paid more money, but I got it. But there's so many opportunities like that, and I see them happening very frequently. And I don't think these are get-rich programs, but they're programs that we can all feel good about, whether we're the producer or whether we're the consumer or whether we're the marketer. And so I think there's just a ton of opportunity there.
I agree with both what Todd and Bernie has said, and I'll actually add to Bernie's first a little bit is when you look at who we've got even on this call, RMED can piece that together from all of our views and be that one voice that represents all of us, which I think is a huge opportunity that we've been lacking in rural Manitoba. I see our biggest opportunity a little different though, strictly because of the industry that we're in with infrastructure. The federal government over the past year has released $456 billion to go into infrastructure across Canada, to which Manitoba is getting a decent chunk of that over the next 5 years. But what we have found is a lot of that goes to Winnipeg. And rural Manitoba misses out on a big chunk of that. So I'd like to think is having someone else to have a voice at that table, which I think RMED can do, to ensure that rural Manitoba is represented appropriately. It's easy to throw something into Winnipeg. It might cost a little more initially to build something new in rural Manitoba, but I think the benefits, not just to municipalities, but also to our provincial government, and whether it be the tax side, whether it be increased population in these areas, will definitely add a long-term benefit for anything that's sustainable that we can put in there. So I look at the opportunity to have RMED support CARM itself, but also these rural economies and getting some of that funding out to the rural areas.
Thank you for your time today. I look forward to furthering our conversations in the coming months.